Hello, everyone. Welcome to Transform Now. I'm Brad Hairston.
And I'm Michael Marchuk.
And this is our weekly pulse check, taking a look at what's popping in the world of automation and AI. And Michael, there's quite a bit that's
Lots of
popping in the
popping.
knee. We're gonna need an algorithm to help us choose the right articles going forward, but we did our best. So
Either that or we're going to have to go to more than three because the news seems like it's flowing fast these days for sure.
yes, definitely. So one of the top news headlines of the week certainly got everybody talking is around an announcement from Anthropic. So the article that I'm referencing here for us is from CIO magazine, and it's titled "How Anthropic's New Computer Use Ability Could Further AI Automation." Now, this relates to an upgrade to Claude 3.5 Sonnet, their large language model. And as the article title cited, this computer use is what they're calling it. It's enabling developers to instruct Claude through the Anthropic API to read and interpret what's on a computer display, to type text, to move the cursor, click buttons. So, Michael, is this the death of RPA?
Yes. Next question. No. So it's interesting. First of all, this is a beta, so we're just getting going with this. Interesting concept, interesting use of the technology. Certainly, this could be a future state computer vision component that supports RPA and in the way that manages automation. But there's a bunch of things that I want to talk about with this particular iteration. So interesting technology, being able to read the screen and execute commands. But if you stop there and say, well, they can do this stuff, obviously that's going to replace RPA. You peel back the curtain just a little bit, you kind of see some flaws that start there. First of all, the functionality that this has right now, and I preface this is in beta. So as we all know, things change quickly.
Right.
But the possibilities that it does right now, the potential, is things that we've seen in the RPA industry for over a decade. So this is nothing new in terms of RPA technology or automation technology. This is akin to some screen scraping stuff. It's smart screen scraping, but it's certainly things that we've seen done for a long time. The second is the speed and the cost that it has to actually do the execution. So the basics behind this, using Claude to read a screen and interpret where the buttons are and enter text and read responses. There's a lot of compute resources, GPUs whirring away somewhere in the cloud that has to interpret that data coming back from the screen, which can only be a certain size. I mean, they're talking like 1024 by 768. This is like a small olden laptop screen size. I mean, very narrow in terms of the amount of bandwidth that it has. So again, read that information, but the amount of effort it takes through to just get one very simple thing accomplished is something that even back in the day, for the olden days, early on RPA, people would have discarded the technology if this is as fast as it went, right? Because there's so much lag time in terms of pulling the whole screen back, reading it, computing where those elements are, and then going to use them. So that's one aspect of it. So is it going to replace any kind of automation soon? No. I know UiPath has indicated that they currently use Claude and their Claude 3.5 Sonnet in their products, which the article references. So they're looking at this as a potential, but in reality, every major vendor that's in any kind of automation space has had this technology for, like I said, 10 years or more. So this is definitely nothing new. What's interesting about it is that the requests and how you make the request is very different than how you would theoretically program an RPA script, if you will, in the early days to make this happen. again, RPA and intelligent automation has come way further than that in the past 10 years. So there's a lot of interesting stuff we already do that this would take a lot of effort to catch up to, which gets to the second part of cost. The amount of GPU effort to do these very straightforward, simple things becomes pretty unwieldy, especially if you've got many processes. If you think of this at scale, this would be very difficult to scale currently,
Right.
just because of the way that it's being done. Now, I'm prefacing all this stuff because, for all I know, next week, there's going to be a similar model that does exactly the same thing and does it in light speed for a penny, right? And that's always a possibility because technology moves that fast to this day.
Yeah.
But there are some things that there are issues there. The final thing I want to bring up is the way that it does it. Is folks who are in any kind of automation planning project or whatever, they're awfully concerned about data privacy and data management, et cetera.
Yep.
Well, this basically takes a screenshot of the screen and sends it back into the cloud, which literally it displays everything on the screen. So if there are things that shouldn't necessarily go to the screen, to the cloud for others to see, for computer vision experts to evaluate, for data to be potentially stored, learned from, this is a challenge because, again, traditional intelligent automation and RPA vendors have had this licked for a long time. This is a problem they fixed many years ago. So again, is it going to replace RPA or automation? Not anytime soon.
Yeah.
Could it be a valuable implementation or something as part of this healthy breakfast kind of thing? Maybe.
Yeah.
But not anytime soon.
And there will be lots of cries about RPA is dead as a result of just this one development, for sure. But like Monty Python, we're not dead yet. And we have been declared dead many times before. To me, just one point I'll make, and you've kind of already mentioned this to an extent. I mean, it's taken 20 years for companies to get comfortable with letting digital workers, bots, access their mission critical systems and data. Are they going to throw all that away and say, here you go, AI, just go at it and, figure it out and then just tell us what to do and we'll go and do that? I'm not so sure. I think the governance aspect cannot be understated. The fact that, AI still really doesn't have an audit trail. There is not only a lack of explainability, but there's a lack of an audit trail. So I'm not saying that's all that RPA does, but that is one very valuable thing that RPA offers to the equation, that this functionality is not taking advantage of. So anyway, interesting development.
Before we beat this one to death, the last thing I want to say is, it's using the right tool for the right job. I mean, just like we've seen before, people are complaining that, these large language models can't do math. Like, well, I wouldn't necessarily expect them to do math specifically because they weren't necessarily designed for that functionality. There's plenty of other things that can do math. Right. So using the right tool for the right job, no matter what it is, no matter what the technology is really the thought process you have to go through.
Yeah.
So,
Agreed. Well, our second article comes from The Byte, that's BYTE, and it's titled Man Baffled When He Shows Up for a Job Interview, and the interviewer is an AI avatar. So, Michael, would you mind being interviewed by an AI avatar for an opportunity if it was a company you really wanted to get into and that was the first step? What do you think about that?
So there's two things. One is no. The answer is no. I would not necessarily want that. Maybe my first interaction with an organization. If you consider the hiring process, just in general, how depersonalized it's already become. People are already taking their resumes and using AI to enhance them or to whatever, add keywords to them to make sure that they're going through the AI algorithm on the other side of the fence when they submit their applications, so that it can make it to the next step of actually being evaluated. So they're just trying to get through the door, the first sieve process. They're already using these kind of tools to get there. And to know that AI is evaluating you first, sending your resume alone before you even get to the process is bad enough. But to say that I've already got past that, and now my very first true interaction is with something that's not even a person, makes you wonder what their process is internal to the company, because you've depersonalized you and even this capability of talking with somebody about the culture of the company and how you feel about it and how long have you been with it. There's no relational aspect to be able to understand what the company's really like.
Okay.
And so at that point, it becomes yet another depersonalization, which would turn me off personally going into that kind of situation.
I'm going to take the flip side. So I actually think that too many people get screened out just based on a paper resume, well, electronic resume, and never get a chance to interview or have that second, second step. And so I think an AI avatar, even though it's not very personal and it is an avatar, but I think it might actually find those candidates that on paper don't look like they're any good, but based on answers they give, the AI may say, hey, this person's worth a look. So I don't know that recruiters and others pay a lot of attention and really look past like a few. I think they do a cursory look of resumes, or they use AI to pull out a few data points. And if they don't match all these, they don't even look at them. But I think it can be better. And so I'm gonna take the opposite view and just say, maybe this will allow some people that based on their resume alone would never make it to that step. It may help some of those people get there. And I don't know, that's just my theory.
So I'll go a little further with this too. So there's two parts that I want to talk about. One is the actual process itself. So if we talk about interviewing for a position, the article mentions, and I would agree with this, that it does remove bias from the interviewer's perspective. So if I showed up and I was missing a tooth and you saw my background and it looks like I was living in a garbage dump somewhere, that could be taken into account as perhaps this isn't the right fit. No matter how good my answers may have been and my experience may be, there would be some bias associated with how I look and where I'm at that an AI avatar wouldn't necessarily take into account, and therefore could be less biased and just go by the answers. So that is one aspect I would agree with. The challenge I guess I would have with it is, if you're going to try to look at a company as a group of people who are working towards a common goal, and you never even meet people to start with, that you don't necessarily ever have that real opportunity to meet with them. But now I will take your side of one, and another angle of this is, I've seen just recently from a new startup that has the capability of doing AI interviews as test interviews. So you could sit and do a video interview with a couple AI avatars who ask you questions and maybe pepper you something, giving you the kind of that confidence to be able to answer those kind of questions on camera and get feedback and stuff from an avatar that could be beneficial when you're looking at doing a real in life, in person, or over the video interview. So there are benefits, I think, for the technology and for the capabilities. I'm not sure from a corporate perspective if that sends the right message to the candidate, in that I don't really care enough to meet you in person yet.
Right.
But that's just my personal.
Great points. Great points. Okay, so our third article to wrap up today is from Forbes, and it's titled "How Gen AI is Becoming a Prime Target for Cyber Attacks." Now, this actually relates pretty well back to the Anthropic computer use article, I believe. But it's talking about the fact that, the very capabilities that make Gen AI so transformative are also making it suspect to bad actors who can use things like prompt injection or model manipulation, because Gen AI operates in this black box fashion. So what are your thoughts on the points made by this article?
I definitely agree with that angle of it. The way I would kind of see this is a social engineering kind of injection, an attack, where you're working with an AI versus a person. So if you're not familiar with social engineering, it's someone calling up to a company and say, hey, listen, I forgot my password and I'm really in a rush. I can't get into my account. Can you help me out, please? And you socially engineer by manipulating the emotions or feelings of the person on the other side of the phone to get what you need or want. And that kind of social engineering attack has been happening for quite some time. It's nothing new. But this kind of thing where you don't necessarily have a person on the other end, you have a Gen AI who's is neither good nor bad, but by providing prompts which may alter the way that it normally functions, you may be able to get more information out of it than you're putting in, and it may expose flaws or expose full databases or other things that certainly weren't intended by the folks who had made that chatbot or that type of interaction. So it definitely has an issue with that. And kind of going back to the Anthropic article, they actually mentioned that in there, that it's possible then too that you could create or craft a data injection attack simply by having things on the screen which would inform the Gen AI who's reading the screen to do something different than you actually intended it to happen. So because you're dealing with, I wouldn't call it naive because they're not people, but you're dealing with a computer that's doing what it's been asked to do, unless you put some safeguards or a governance or guardrails in place to be able to protect from that type of attack, you are leaving yourself vulnerable.
Yeah, no doubt. Well, the article goes on to say that the answer to all of this is, surprise, surprise, more AI. Let's use AI-powered software to identify these attacks and mitigate them. So I would just ask the question, is any form of AI completely impervious to bad actors? Even AI-powered cybersecurity software probably can be attacked in some way. I don't know, maybe not. But, this just once again points to the importance of governance and establishing that around anything AI related in the organization, and especially now with Gen AI. Gen AI is so powerful that everything is trending toward giving it more and more control, and let's let it do more things for us. And that's great on one hand, but on the other hand, it creates new risks and new things that need to be thought through carefully. As we talked about ad nauseum before, we need to pace ourselves on how we think about that and not rush into it. Well, thanks for joining us today on the Pulse Check. Every week we have another podcast with a great guest, so please check that out. And otherwise, we will see you next time on the Pulse Check. Thanks for joining. Bye for now.